Alright, what's up everybody? I'm Clint back here with 8 Up. I wanted to do a tutorial video on how to build a skid plate. So this skid plate's going to be one for dirt bike. I guess you could build a skid plate for a UTV. You just need a lot more material. The material that we're going to use is HDPE, high density polyethylene. And the funny thing is a lot of your plastic cutting boards that you buy at the grocery store are made of HDPE. That's what this is. This was the one that we tried to make our last one out of, and our equipment failed us. So this is the new one, and I bought this at Target for like $7. I think I'm into this whole project maybe $40 at this point in time. But the skid plate that we're going to build is going to be equivalent to the $160 skid plates you see that are made by SXS and by AXP. So real quick, I just wanted to go through the tools that we need to get this project started. So the simple stuff you're going to need a tape measure, you're going to need a straight edge. This is actually just a painter's stick. It's a ruler. You're going to need some scissors. You're going to need a utility knife, markers. The silver marker you're going to need for the black skid plate. It's better than trying to use anything else, and you can see it really easy, so you can draw your outline and cut it. Black markers for the cardboard. You want cardboard. The cardboard you're going to use, this one is the exact same size as the plastic, so that lets you lay out what you're gonna. It's gonna let you make your design for your skid plate. You're gonna make a template. This is my template. I used it, mocked it up on the dirt bike, bent it where the frame bends, and then started building all these side pieces so that it protects the other parts of the dirt bike. So cardboard, you're going to need some protractors and some straight edges. So these are, a right triangle, an equilateral triangle, whatnot. So that helps you get angles for your template. Squares, I got a speed square and an engineer square. That just helps you, make sure you got. This is really handy when you're trying to measure stuff on the dirt bike, like frame width and lengths to bends and whatnot. Plus it's got the angle on it, so it helps you measure up the frame of the dirt bike when you're trying to figure out angles and where the bends are going to be. You're going to need a Dremel tool. Mine is wall powered, has 10 speeds, or you can use a jigsaw. I use the Dremel tool just because it's easy. Another one you can use is a Rotozip. The reason why I say Rotozip is I went and bought these blades for my Dremel tool, and that's pretty much what it does. It turns my Dremel tool into a Rotozip. And I've found, because I tried using the scroll saw before, that it helps you get the angles, and you can cut in radius and whatnot on this plastic. It cuts way easier. Make sure you buy a good new blade for that. Then I got these reamer bits for my Dremel tool as well, and that's just to help flush the edges, round edges, whatever we may need to do. And then kind of works as a router bit as well, so that when we're shaving down the plastic in certain spots, and we'll get into that as we're building this, it makes it a little bit more thin in the areas that you need to bend. Just makes it a little easier. You're going to need a heat gun. That helps with bending the skid plate. You're going to need an oven, or use your wife's oven, and a cookie sheet to set the skid plate on, so that you can heat the plastic up a little bit better, so you're not just relying on the heat gun to soften up the plastic and bend it. And then these little clamps right here, I got a bag of these clamps. They're the little spring clamps. I think it was like $10 at Lowe's or something like that. The hardware that we're going to use to mount this skid plate, I got 3/4 inch rigid conduit straps. 1-holes is what they're called in the trade. I had some of them lying around the house, and I just figured those would work. That 3/4 inch I don't know what size you would need for your frame, but those are the ones that fit my frame on my dirt bike, and every application is going to be different. This is the one that I'm building for my Husqvarna 350, so it would work on a KTM 350, 250, and possibly the 450. Just the design of your skid plate would have to change. So like I said, this isn't the end all be all, this will work for everybody kind of skid plate tutorial. It's more of, I'm building it for my 350 and showing you what I use to do mine, so then that way you can plan your build. So I'm attaching these one holes to the frame and then to the skid plate, but I'm using stainless steel countersink head machine screws that are 1/4 20 thread. I went with 1/4 inch just because it's halfway strong. Everything that I've looked at, like the AXP and the SXS skid plates, they're mounted with these kind of hardware. And I was originally using 1/4 20 hex head bolts, but they probably going to snag on stuff, and the way they work with this plastic, it's not what I want to do. So I'm going to use countersinks and this hardware to mount everything together, and that's pretty much a general idea. Oh, you're going to need some duct tape. Definitely want safety glasses, and then I have these nifty difty anti-cut gloves. You can actually go, these are ones that I got from work, and they're a little snazzy. They got impact protection on them and whatnot. I use these for almost every mechanical job I do in the house. They keep me from getting cut by the utility knife, and they're just nice protection for your hands in case something slips while you're using the Dremel tool. So with that being said, that in a nutshell is what you're going to need to get this project started. So stay tuned, and the next time you see me, we will be actually in the process of making the skid plate. So I just wanted to do this quick, start it off, let you know what you needed to get started. We'll jump into some time lapse. You guys can see how the process works, laying things out, whatnot, and then get some more video later of me actually working. So hope that helps get you started. I'll make sure I put a list of everything in the description. That way you guys know everything that I used and where I got it from. So stay tuned and we'll get to it. Alright, so I was messing around with this thing and I had too many mistakes on the new template from the old template, so we're starting over, round 3. So what I'm going to do to maximize my cardboard usage here, it looks like I can get more out of this thing this way. I don't know. Anyway, so I have to start over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cutting board. It's pretty self-explanatory. So I'm going to leave an outline the same size as my cutting board, which I'm making the skid plate out of. That way when I design my new skid plate template, it fits inside the material that I have. So anyway, starting over round 3. Guys, stay tuned and we'll go from there. Alright, peace out. Okay, so we've made our changes. We had to cut the sides off, attach them with duct tape. This is all part of the template building process. Anyway, so now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to bend these on this template just to make this piece of cardboard flexible. And then I'm going to take it over to the dirt bike and I'm going to mock it up, see how it fits. If I like the way it fits, then what we're going to do is we'll start cutting on the cutting board. We'll outline our template on the cutting board and we'll cut it out, and then once we get our plastic cut out, start to get it bent, whatnot, we're going to keep this template. Don't get rid of it. I mean, even after you're done, hang on to it, because I've learned already that you mess this up pretty quick. So hang on to your template, and then what we're going to use this template for too is our conduit straps are going to be what hold this bad mamma jamma to the frame. So we got to figure out where we're going to put these. I also noticed that the top of this, it's pretty narrow right in here, so I don't know if these conduit straps are going to work up top yet to hold this on. So I might have to rethink a new mount for the very top of this, and I have some aluminum strap that I bought that I might have to kind of redneck engineer into a clamp or mount for the top of this. So anyway, I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to use these one-hole clamps for majority of holding this skid plate on. I might have some extra scrap cutting board laying around that we could build one out of too, so we'll just see. But anyway, that's where we're at right now, so just keep following along. Thanks. Alright, so we mocked it up on the bike. The bins are right where they need to be, so it's going to take a little finagling with the heat gun, but I think we're ready to. I like the way the template fits. The changes that I made to this actually cover more of the water pump, so I'm stoked about that. And where I moved this to actually covers the gosh dang it, covers the starter on the other side of the bike. So everything that I've changed on this covers where I want it to cover. So the fins on the side here, they do pretty good at protecting the case next to the frame rail here. And like I said, now we can just transfer this to the plastic and start cutting away, and then we'll go from there. So stay tuned. Thanks. Alright, so we've got our pattern transferred onto our cutting board now. The metallic marker that I'm using kind of smudges, so I'm trying not to touch it as much as possible until it dries off a little bit. So one thing I wanted to tech tip real quick is, obviously our cardboard is the rough draft. Our plastic is going to be our final draft. So like any good paper, you want to proofread over your stuff. And as a good shop teacher once told me, anytime you're doing a project, you want to measure twice and cut once. So there's a lot of angles and edges and square points on this project. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my square, now that I have it transferred to this. I know the dimensions of my frame. So this total thing is supposed to be 5 7/8 wide. So I'm going to go down through here, and I'm going to make sure that I have this laid out square. And then I'll go from there. Yeah, I may have to wipe this thing off and erase it a few times, but I would rather take the time right now and make sure that I got everything perfectly square, because if I don't, when I go to bend it and put it on the dirt bike, it's going to be all wonky and things aren't going to go where they need to go. So I just wanted to stop and make that point to everybody that right now things look a little crooked to me. So I am kind of a perfectionist, and I want to know that my stuff is square and that everything's going to come out the way it's supposed to. The cool thing is the way I drew this pattern out, I gave myself a little bit larger diameter or size of object than I needed on the bike. That way, if I need to make any corrections or I make any mistakes while I'm cutting it out, I have a little bit of playroom to make it up. So like I said, take your time real quick after you get it transferred to your material and make sure everything's square. So just pay attention to the pictures as they come along and follow along. Thanks for following. Alright, so like I was saying, you wanted to make sure that everything was square because this is your final draft and that cardboard was your rough draft. So if you can see, I've kind of, down here on the bottom, our lines were off. We weren't square at all. So I had to go back through and measured from one edge, determined what the inside line was, right? Then 5 7/8 added that onto, and I squared up this line. So you can see the original line from the template right here. That's how much we were off as far as width wise. So I added these lines here. These are our bend references from this template before. So I actually used this, matched it up with our cardboard here, and you can see that this bad mamma jamma is 5 7/8, and that our lines are now on that, and we're somewhat more square. But the point of this was to make sure that as I was squaring this up, and I was changing these geometry lines, that our bend lines were going to stay the same. And I went through and referenced the bend lines. This line down here was just to make sure that the bottom part stayed even. So I wanted to make sure that on this, if you can see here, this is pretty much, let me get it flush with the top here. This is just inside our bend line for the top bend. So that way, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we were still going to be good. So anyway, I have squared it up, and I think that we're good to go. If you notice, I have marked all of the spots that are getting cut out with X's. That's so I don't get confused on what my cuts are and I don't mess anything up. So anyway, we're going to get to cutting on this, so you guys stay tuned, and we're that much closer to having a skid plate done out of a cutting board. All right, cool. All right, got her all cut out. So we used our nifty Dremel tool, got it all cut out. So now comes the fun part, and that is heating this and bending it. I was originally going to use the oven, but I think I'm just going to stick with the heat gun for now and give her hell that way. I used to have pretty good luck when I was an electrician bending PVC with a heat gun. So we'll see how this goes. I'm probably just going to clamp this bad mamma jamma to the table here, heat it up on the back side, and bend it around the corner of the 2x4. Alright, stand by, stay tuned, we'll give her hell. Alright, so we have gotten the sides of our skid plate bent. Pretty stoked about this. I got it pretty hot with the heat gun. The inside of this one kind of bubbled up a little bit. These two turned out pretty good. This side I got a little crazy with the cheese whiz on the heat gun there, but thankfully that's going to be on the inside next to the frame. So this stuff was from when I clamped it down on the table. It was still hot, so I can get rid of most of this with some sandpaper and you won't really see it. But the beautiful thing about this is it's a skid plate, and it's probably going to get boogered up anyway, so it doesn't have to look pretty. But the biggest part about everything is how everything lines up and how the bends come out. So far it looks like it's going to fit pretty good. These two lines right here are going to be our next two bends, and so we have to bend this basically to fit the contour of the Husky. So I've taken my handy dandy protractor and I got this center line with the bottom. So this first bend on the bottom is actually a 45 and the very top bend is a 25. And we've got to kind of account for the radius down here in the middle. So this bend's going to be a little bit bigger. So I'm hoping, based on the way that this is bent so far, the plastic, that when I go to bend this, I'm going to clamp these clamps right here in the middle, and those will kind of help me with my radius. So I'm going to heat this up and I'm just going to bend it. Yeah, so like I said, we need a 25 for the top, a 45 for the middle. Whatever frame you're building these for, these little protractors, they come in handy. I got this for like $1 at Hobby Lobby or something like that. It comes with a right triangle, and then a 90-degree or a isosceles triangle. So yeah, it comes with two different kinds of triangles, and then a protractor and a ruler. Comes in handy for making the angles that you want to make on these things. So I'm pretty stoked about that. The other thing I got to thinking about was I need to figure out how to get to my drain plug on my dirt bike so I can change the oil. And then I'm going to cut some holes in this, probably just with a drill bit, drill some holes in it for some ventilation. So, but other than that, we're trucking along pretty good, and we'll get back to it. Thanks for tuning in. All right, what's up, guys? So like I was talking earlier, we have to bend right here and right here. So this one's going to be a 45-degree bend, and then this one's going to be a 25-degree bend. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my handy dandy little protractor here, and I'm going to make me an angle guide, so that way I can put the angle guide on my piece of plastic right here in the middle, and then that way when I reach the prescribed 25-degree angle, then boom, done. And that's how I'll know that I've got my angle right. So guys, stay tuned and watch how we're going to do that. Alright, so it was wet and cold in here, and now it's gotten hot, and my workbench just keeps getting more and more cluttered as we go along with this project. So, anyway, what we're doing right now is I'm going to take the bend template that I had from earlier, and I got to find my scissors, wherever they went. Right here. So what we're doing is I'm just trying to kind of mock up the front end of this skid plate. So we got done bending it. I've tweaked it. The angles were a little off, but I think I've gotten it pretty much where I want it as far as angles go. And now we are using these 3/4 inch. So when I was an electrician, we called them one-holes, and that's exactly what they are. They're called a one-hole strap. And so these are for 3/4 rigid or IMC conduit. So pretty much a 3/4 rigid is about it's the right size. It fits the frame on this Husqvarna. Unfortunately, I don't know like frame sizes for other dirt bikes, or if these will even work for other dirt bikes. This was the least expensive but most durable option. Like, these things are pretty tough. They're made out of steel. They're stamped. They're heavy duty. The cool thing is I have these countersunk machine head screws. So what we're going to do with these is we're actually going to take this panel right here. We're going to mock it up on the dirt bike. I'm actually going to tape it in place with some duct tape, and then I have the one-hole straps. Let's see here. So I have the one-hole straps. You can see they're right here. So I have the one-hole straps kind of just finagled onto the dirt bike in a decent position, and I'm trying to get away without having to use any of the aluminum strap to tie any of these together. So, yep, we're going to take this, we're going to tape it to the dirt bike, we're going to find out where these holes lie, then we're going to turn around, we're going to drill the holes here from the template, we're going to mark it on the skid plate, and then once we do that, then we can countersink them, run the bolts through, bolt it all together, and bam, skid plate on. All right, so we have marked our holes and pretty much got them ready to drill out. Went and put all the conduit straps on the dirt bike, got them laid out on the template, and now we're going to drill the holes. I've gone through, I've double checked all my measurements. I stuck the 1 holes on the frame and then measured between the 1 holes, squared them up. So basically, to keep everything even and make my life easier when it goes to put these things on, I just went off the right side of the dirt bike and then matched everything up on the left hand side of the dirt bike. And yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to drill a pilot hole first, and then it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but I have these nifty difty countersink bits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a pilot hole with this pilot bit first from the back, so that way I know they're coming out in the right spot. And then I'll take the countersink bit, stick it in the drill bit hole, and then I'll countersink it till the machine screws are flush, and we'll call it at that. So stay tuned. Yeah, and we're trucking right along. All right, so we got the skid plate on the dirt bike. Pretty stoked. As you can see, I ended up not having to use the 2 mounts at the top, and I don't think it's going anywhere, but these 2 down in the middle, I don't know if you can see that one back in there or not, but the 2 in the middle were absolute bears, and I needed tiny hands on the end of my fingers to get them on, but I got them on. I don't know how, I guess it's just my mechanical experience kicking in, but I got it on. So yeah, I didn't add the linkage protector. The reason why I didn't do that is my buddy Chuck called me and they need to borrow the dirt bike, so I don't have time to build that. I think it'll be okay for a weekend of riding. Chuck breaks my dirt bike, he'll fix it. So yeah, there's that, and that's about it. So I got to do a couple more modifications to the skid plate, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'll do those when we add the linkage protector later in a later video. So that being said, I really appreciate everybody tuning in, following along for this build. Has been pretty smooth so far, so I'm pretty stoked about it. It took me, I mean, if you crack down and you spent a whole day doing it from like sun up to bedtime, you could probably get it done in 1 day. I busted it out in about 3 days time, just because I'd work on it for a couple hours and then go hang out with my family. So it took me 3 days to build it, but if somebody, you know, doesn't have any other obligations and they want to take a whole day to do it, probably can do it in a day. So if anybody has any questions about what I did, feel free to message me in the comments below or PM me. So yeah, that's it. I got to get this bike charged up, get the battery good to go, get it fired up, make sure it runs good, give it a good wash before Chuck picks it up. So anyway, you guys stay classy, make death earn it. Thanks for watching. Peace.